Have you ever been told you're just too sensitive? Or maybe you've walked away from a conversation, feeling completely drained, like someone just sucked the life out of you. You replay their words over and over in your mind, trying to figure out what just happened. And deep down, you wonder, why does this always happen to me? If you've ever felt emotionally overwhelmed by people who twist your kindness, cross your boundaries, or make you question your worth, this is for you. Welcome to a space of clarity, strength, and healing. This is the audiobook summary of The Highly Sensitive Person's Guide to Dealing with Toxic People by Shahida Arabi. A lifeline for empaths, sensitives, and peace seekers who've had enough of emotional chaos. Shahida Arabi is not just an author, she's a survivor, a researcher, and a voice for the deeply feeling souls in this chaotic world. With a master's degree in psychology from Columbia University, and years of lived experience with narcissistic abuse, Shahida has made it her mission to empower those who've been emotionally wounded, especially highly sensitive people or HSPs. Her work bridges science and soul. She brings together deep psychological insight, trauma research, and spiritual strength. She's written multiple bestsellers on toxic relationships, but this particular book stands out because it speaks directly to those of us who feel too much, too deeply, too honestly, and often too alone in our pain. Now let's know why this book matters and how it's going to help us. This book matters because it speaks directly to the ones who feel everything, too much, too deeply, too silently. It's for those who keep giving even when it hurts. For those who second-guess their own feelings after every draining interaction. It's not just a guide to identifying toxic people. It's a mirror, a map, and a medicine for anyone who has ever been emotionally manipulated, silenced, or worn down by others' behavior. As you listen, you won't just understand what's happening to you, you'll begin to understand why it happens and, more importantly, how to protect yourself without losing your softness. You'll learn to set boundaries without guilt, to recognize manipulation before it sinks in, to speak your truth, walk away when needed, and most of all, honor your sensitivity as the strength it truly is. This book helps you reclaim your emotional clarity, your energy, and your peace, because you deserve to feel safe, not just in your home or your workplace, but in your own heart. So let's begin this beautiful read. Part 1, The Empath's Dilemma. One moment we're at peace, and the next, a single conversation, a tone of voice, or a dismissive glance can leave us spiraling, questioning ourselves, doubting our worth. Why does it hit us so hard? That's the heart of what Shahida Arabi gently unravels in this book. She calls it the Empath's Dilemma. You see, if you're a highly sensitive person, or an empath, you don't just hear words. You feel them. You don't just notice pain in others, you carry it. Your nervous system is wired to pick up what others miss. The tension in a room, the change in someone's tone, the sadness behind their smile. And while this depth of awareness is a beautiful strength in a toxic world, it can become a painful trap. Because here's the truth, people who manipulate, control, or drain others are drawn to people like you. What? Because you're understanding. You forgive quickly. You blame yourself before blaming anyone else. You give the benefit of the doubt even when the truth is screaming in your face. And so the pattern begins, one where the more you give, the more they take. The more you bend, the more they push. Until one day you're left wondering, where did I go? Shahida calls this the emotional erosion of an empath. In the early stages, it's subtle. You'll feel tired after being around certain people. You'll notice how they twist your words, make jokes at your expense, or shift blame onto you with a smile. But over time, this emotional erosion becomes silence, shame, self-abandonment. You shrink yourself to keep the peace. You walk on eggshells. You start to believe that maybe you are too sensitive. Maybe you're the problem. But you're not. You were never too sensitive. You were just never taught how to protect that sensitivity. And that's what makes this book so powerful. It doesn't ask you to become someone you're not. It doesn't tell you to harden, to shut down, or to fight back like the world does. Instead, it teaches you how to stay open, but grounded, compassionate, but protected, present, but powerful. This is where your healing begins, not by changing your nature but by finally understanding it. In the next section we'll dive deeper. We'll begin to unmask the people who drain your light, the ones who pretend to care but leave you empty. We'll learn how to spot toxic patterns, even when they're hidden behind smiles, gifts, and sweet words. And most importantly, we'll learn how to stop giving our power away, without losing the beautiful soul we came here with. Let's begin. Part 2. identifying toxic personalities. You're here because you're done doubting yourself. And now it's time to turn on the lights and see clearly what's been hiding in plain sight. Not everyone who hurts you is a bad person. But some people know exactly what they're doing. They test your boundaries, slowly. They speak in half-truths, carefully. They apologize without changing, repeatedly. They come wrapped in warmth, charm, even love, but underneath there's a pattern. A quiet, calculated pattern that drains you, confuses you, and eventually controls you. This is the world of toxic personalities. Shahida Arabi doesn't just label people. She helps us understand their behaviors so we can name them, notice them, and no longer fall for them. So, who are these people? Sometimes they are narcissists, those who thrive on admiration but lack true empathy. They will shower you with praise in one moment and cut you down in the next, only to blame you for your reaction. Sometimes they are manipulators, masters of guilt-tripping, gaslighting, and subtle control. They twist your words. They deny your reality. They make you feel like you're too emotional, too dramatic, too sensitive. Sound familiar? Then there are the energy drainers, people who constantly complain, criticize, or unload on you without ever asking how you feel. Their chaos becomes your responsibility. Their pain becomes your burden. And if you try to step back, they make you feel guilty, as if you're abandoning them. But the truth is, you were never meant to carry their weight. And here's the thing. Highly sensitive people are the perfect targets for toxic personalities. Why? Because we want to help. Because we want to heal. Because we see the good in people, even when their behavior screams otherwise. But seeing the good is not the same as ignoring the bad. Shahida reminds us that awareness is the first step to freedom. You can't set boundaries with what you don't recognize. You can't walk away from what you keep excusing. So in this part of the journey, we learn to see without guilt. To name the red flags we've been trained to overlook. Gaslighting isn't just lying, it's making you question your own mind. Love bombing isn't just affection. It's a tool to hook you emotionally before the control begins. Silent treatment isn't needing space. It's emotional punishment designed to break your spirit. And once you see it, you can never unsee it. This knowledge doesn't make you bitter, it makes you brave. Because when you stop explaining away the harm, you start reclaiming your power. And that's where we're heading. In the next part, we'll dive into why you feel these wounds more deeply than others. You'll discover the science behind your sensitivity, why your brain and body respond so intensely to conflict, rejection, or manipulation, and how your nervous system, your trauma history, and your emotional depth all play a role in this invisible war you've been fighting for years. It's time to understand not just them, but you. And I promise what you'll discover will change everything. Let's keep going. Part 3. Why it hurts more for highly sensitive people. You've seen the patterns. You've started naming the behaviors. You've opened your eyes to what you used to explain away. But still, you wonder, why does it hurt this much? Why can't I just brush it off like other people do? Why does one conversation drain me for days? You're not overreacting. You're not weak. You're wired differently, and that changes everything. Shahida Arabi gently reminds us that being a highly sensitive person is not a flaw, it's a biological trait. It means your nervous system processes input more deeply, emotionally, physically, spiritually. It means your brain picks up on subtleties others don't even notice. It means you feel everything, the joy, the pain, the tension, the betrayal, with a kind of intensity that cannot be explained in words. And when you're around a toxic person, someone who manipulates, gaslights, or invalidates, you're not just having a conversation. You're having a nervous system event. Your body goes into fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. Your heart races, your mind spins, and before you know it, you're not just upset. You're unraveled. And that's not weakness. That's trauma physiology. You see, HSPs often have a deeper connection to past pain. Many of us grew up in households where our feelings were ignored, dismissed, or mocked. We learned early on to be good, to stay small, to not make a fuss. So when someone mistreats us now, it doesn't just hurt in the moment. It activates every moment we were silenced before. This is why no contact feels so hard. Why setting boundaries feels like betrayal. Why walking away leaves you in tears. Not because you missed the toxic person, but because it reactivates your inner child, the one who was never allowed to protect herself. Shahida calls this emotional layering, when past wounds echo through present experiences. And until we understand this, we stay stuck in self-blame, thinking, I should be over this. But healing doesn't come from shutting down your feelings. It comes from honoring them. It comes from realizing, yes, I feel deeply. Yes, I need more space. Yes, I get overwhelmed. And that's okay. Your sensitivity is not the problem. The problem is that no one taught you how to protect it. You don't need to be less emotional. You just need to be less exposed to people who weaponize your emotions. And that begins with listening to your body. To the tightness in your chest when someone lies to you. To the pit in your stomach when someone manipulates you. To the ache in your heart when someone makes you feel small. Those feelings aren't overreactions. They're signals. They're warnings. They're your intuition, trying to guide you back to safety. In the next part of our journey, we'll learn exactly how to do that. How do you protect your energy in a world that constantly pulls at it? How do you say no when your guilt screams yes? How do you create emotional boundaries without turning cold or distant? We'll walk through it all, gently, step by step. Because being sensitive doesn't mean you have to suffer. It means you have to shield your light without dimming it. You're not too much. You've just never had the tools until now. Let's keep going. Part 4. Protecting your energy. You've seen the patterns. You felt the pain. You've realized this isn't about being too sensitive. It's about living in a world that doesn't always honor sensitivity. But now comes the part that changes everything. The part where you no longer just survive. You begin to protect your energy. Shahida Arabi doesn't offer shallow advice like, just cut them off, or toughen up. Because she understands that for a highly sensitive person, boundaries aren't just behavioral, they're emotional revolutions. Protecting your energy isn't just about saying no. It's about choosing yourself. Every single time someone asks you to abandon who you are for their comfort. So, how do you begin? You start by listening to the quiet discomfort before it becomes loud pain. You notice how your body tenses when someone speaks. You pay attention to the people who only call when they need something, or who disappear the moment you need them. You stop explaining your boundaries to those who are committed to disrespecting them. And most of all, you remember that your peace is sacred. Shahida teaches something powerful here. Boundaries are not punishments. They are acts of self-love. Saying, I can't continue this conversation right now, is not rude. It's protection. Not responding to a toxic message is not immature. It's intelligent. Blocking someone who consistently drains or devalues you is not dramatic. It's healing. For so long, we've been told that sensitivity means passivity. That if we feel deeply, we must endure endlessly. But the truth is, your sensitivity becomes your superpower when it's shielded by discernment. You don't have to argue to prove your worth. You don't have to stay just to be seen as kind. You don't have to explain your pain to those who cause it. You only need to give yourself permission to walk away from what dims you. And this isn't easy, not at first. Because when you've spent your life people-pleasing, choosing yourself can feel like betrayal. When you've been gaslighted, choosing truth can feel confusing. When you've been hurt, choosing peace can feel foreign. But every boundary you set is a door you close to chaos, and a door you open to freedom. In this part of the book, Shahida offers real tools, scripts, phrases, and techniques you can use in real life. How to deal with guilt trippers. How to exit conversations that drain you. How to say no without explaining your entire soul. How to build emotional distance even when physical distance isn't possible, like in workplaces or family settings. Because this isn't just about protecting your energy for a moment. It's about building a life where peace becomes your default, not your escape. And as you start doing this, something beautiful happens. You begin to breathe differently. You begin to sleep more deeply. You begin to recognize how heavy it all was, and how light freedom feels. In the next section, we'll go even deeper. Because once you begin protecting your energy, a new question arises. How do I heal what's already been damaged? We'll walk into the most tender part of the journey, rebuilding your self-worth after emotional abuse. Because it's not just about pushing toxicity out. It's about inviting self-love in. You're not walking away from people. You're walking back to yourself. Let's go there, together. Part 5. Rebuilding your self-worth. You've begun to protect your energy. You've said no where you once stayed silent. You've stepped away from people who didn't value your heart. But now comes the most tender part of all, the rebuilding. Because even when the toxic voices are gone from your life, their echoes often remain in your mind. You're too sensitive. You're overreacting. No one else has a problem with me, why do you? These words settle in like dust, until you begin to mistake them for truth. That's what emotional abuse does. It doesn't just hurt you in the moment. It rewires you. It conditions you to doubt your instincts, to feel guilt for standing up for yourself, to believe that your needs are too much, your voice too loud, your heart too soft. But listen closely. Those were never your beliefs. They were planted. And now, it's time to unlearn them. Shahida Arabi reminds us here. Self-worth isn't something you find in others' eyes. It's something you remember within your own soul. You don't rebuild self-worth by doing more, fixing yourself, or earning love. You rebuild it by reconnecting with the truth of who you are. And here's the truth. You feel deeply because you were born to. You care fiercely because your empathy is a gift. You sense what others miss because your soul listens louder than words. There is nothing wrong with you. But emotional abuse has a way of creating scars that even you can't always see. You may find yourself apologizing for existing. You may struggle to trust again, even your own choices. You may find comfort in chaos because peace feels unfamiliar. This is all part of the healing. And Shahida offers gentle tools to begin. Inner child work. Reconnecting with that younger version of you who never felt safe to speak, to feel, to be seen. Affirmations, not as fluffy words, but as daily reminders that your truth matters, even when no one else believes it yet. Writing exercises, where you reclaim your story not from a place of pain but from a place of power. Because you are not just someone who survived abuse. You are someone who is reclaiming their voice after years of being silenced. Each time you speak your needs, each time you walk away from manipulation, each time you choose peace over proving, you are building a new identity, not based on what others told you, but on what you finally believe about yourself. That you are worthy, that you are whole, that you are enough, not in some distant future, but right now as you are. And here's the most beautiful part. As you rebuild, you'll begin to attract differently. You'll stop chasing people who can't meet you. You'll stop tolerating half-love, breadcrumb attention, and emotional games. Because the more you value yourself, the less you'll offer discounts to those who don't. In the next part, we'll talk about what happens after the healing begins. When your boundaries are up, your clarity is sharp, and your energy is sacred. We'll talk about how to thrive as a highly sensitive person, not just in survival mode but in alignment. Because you weren't born just to avoid pain. You were born to shine, freely, safely, and fully. Let's step into that light now. Part 6. Thriving as a highly sensitive person. You've walked through the pain. You've faced the patterns. You've protected your energy and begun rebuilding the pieces of yourself that others tried to break. But healing was never the final destination. You were not meant to spend your whole life fixing wounds. You were meant to thrive, to rise, to build a life that doesn't just feel safe, but feels alive. This is where your story begins again. You see, being a highly sensitive person isn't just about surviving toxic people. It's about learning how to exist in a world that often doesn't move at your rhythm, and still keep your soul intact. It's about no longer apologizing for needing rest. No longer dimming your light to avoid making others uncomfortable. No longer pretending to be less emotional so you can belong. Because now, you belong to yourself. Shahida Arabi gives us a beautiful truth in this final part of the book. Your sensitivity is not a disorder to be fixed. It's a mirror of deep intelligence, compassion, and intuitive strength. Let that sink in. You were never broken. You were just surrounded by people who didn't know how to hold what was sacred in you. But now, you do. You begin to design your life around what nourishes you. You choose environments that feel soft on your nervous system. You spend time with people who listen without judgment. You build routines that honor your emotional and physical boundaries. You say yes only when your soul agrees, not just out of guilt. And you start to see your sensitivity as your gift. Your ability to read a room before anyone speaks. Your instinct to offer compassion when others overlook pain. Your connection to beauty, art, stillness, nature. Things the world rushes past but your heart feels in full color. You begin to create, not just protect. You begin to speak, not just defend. You begin to live, not just recover. Because now, your life is no longer shaped by the people who wounded you. It's shaped by the power you reclaimed in healing from them. And you realize, you are not too much. You were just never meant to be small. You are not weak. You've survived things most people can't even name. You are not crazy. You are awake in a world that numbs itself to survive. And that is a gift. So what does thriving look like for you? It looks like peace. It looks like clarity. It looks like joy that doesn't ask permission. It looks like knowing you are safe within yourself, regardless of who walks in or out of your life. You've arrived, not because you've mastered everything, not because you never get triggered, but because now you know yourself. You know when to walk away. You know when to rest. You know when to speak up. And most importantly, you know when to stay soft and when to say enough. Shahida's book isn't just a survival guide. It's a coming home, back to your intuition, back to your body, back to your truth. And from here onward, you no longer just react to the world, you create within it. You lead with softness. You protect with strength. You love with wisdom. And that, dear listener, is the beginning of everything. And so, we come to the close of this journey. If you've made it this far, I want you to pause for a moment. Breathe. Feel that stillness inside you. You didn't just listen to a summary, you listened to yourself. To the quiet truths you've known all along, but maybe didn't have the words for, until now. Remember this. Your sensitivity is not a flaw. Your healing is not a burden. Your boundaries are not too much. You are exactly as you were meant to be, whole, worthy, and deeply powerful. This space, this audio, these words, was created for you. So if it resonated even in a small way, I invite you to carry it forward. Share it with someone who needs this kind of softness. Leave a comment below. Your story might be the light in someone else's darkness. And if this message spoke to your heart, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications, so we can keep walking this healing path together. Because this isn't the end. This is a beginning. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being you. Until next time, stay gentle, stay grounded, and never forget, you deserve a life where your light is safe to shine.